At the time, there was probably about 450 boats in Antigua visiting yachts, and they've gradually been leaving. But of course, all these guys have got a big problem in that they couldn't find any crew. So all the boats leaving have been sort of scratching around to try and get crew. And of course, super yachts have got reasonably strict requirements for their crew. So that's been a bit of a problem. But most boats have left by now. There's a few of us left. There's a J Lionheart, which is going to go off to Newport in a couple of weeks' time. But there's comparatively few boats left now. So, there are problems in flying crews. The other thing is that those boats who are going to stay in the Caribbean will head down towards Grenada, which is generally acceptable to insurance companies, although it is not completely hurricane free. There was Hurricane Ivan trashed it in about 2004. And of course, there's also just a bit of a problem for the local population here is if a hurricane hits here, they all go off into a hurricane shelter. And social distancing in a hurricane shelter is going to be impossible. So I don't know quite how they're going to manage that.
Well, I'd imagine that's going to be the least of their worries if the hurricane is thundering in their direction.
Well, yes, I think so. I mean, essentially at the moment, Antigua, I mean, there's one active case of coronavirus at the moment, so we are pretty much corona-free. As regards timing of hurricanes, there is a rhyme, and it says June too soon, July stand by. Then it says August you must, and I never knew what that meant. And then September remember, and October all over. So the frequency of hurricanes is around about 4.5 average year in September, not much in June, and anything that's in June is, and it's kind of out of season hurricanes. So June and November hurricanes tend to be more based in the Gulf of Mexico and not really spreading. The sort of big season is August, September, particularly September and first half of October, I suppose, for this part of the world. And traditional sort of Atlantic hurricanes recurving and going up the east coast of America. So it's not a huge concern at the moment at this time of year.
Okay, so you're due to head off in a few days. Can you just give us a rough overview of what extra checks you do on the boat, for a trans-ocean crossing, as opposed to if you're going across the channel or doing something that's a bit more coastal?
Yeah, just more food and beer, really. No, we set the boat up anyway for ocean sort of crossing. We sailed over here in the Ark in November, December. So really, the boat is well set up. Rigging is, all the standing rigging is relatively new, sort of less than 2 years old, and has only done one transatlantic in the autumn. I replaced running rigging kind of on a running running basis, so a halyard or so each year, and we've got we've got about 5 halyards at the top of the mast. We've got 5 bits of string there, just sort of replace one a year and it's fine. Sheets and guys. So there's that, and really just make sure that everything's proper as it should be. So before we left England back in September, we dropped the rudder out, checked the bearings, checked the rig. So we're really in pretty good shape. So I'm quite happy with everything.
Okay, good. It's good news.
And the electrics, touching wood solidly, firmly at the moment. All the electrics are working as they should be at the moment.
Very good.
Fridge is humming away, keeping my beer cold.
And you mentioned the beer and food earlier on. How do you victual for a long passage like this? Like, what kind of constraints do you have on what you can bring and what you can't? And maybe you can just talk us through that side of things.
Okay, so I'm expecting to be around about 20 days. So I'll be victualling making sure I've got enough for sort of 35 or so. By and large, fresh fruit, oranges, grapefruits, apples will tend to last a fair bit of that. Pretty much all, they should be able to last all the way. And I'm expecting them to. I'll have some orange juice and stuff. So I normally have an orange every day at breakfast time. Potatoes and all, carrots and stuff should pretty much last. Onions will last pretty much the whole trip. Eggs will last, as you remember, Ray. The only real problem is meat. So I'll have fresh meat for about the first week, and then I will go on to freeze-dried chicken breasts and freeze-dried minced beef.
Right.
Plus any, in the unlikely event of catching a fish, of course.
Very good. Very good. And so when you head off, is it just a case of you get out a great big world map and you draw a line between kind of Antigua and UK and follow it? Like how do you plan a route across an ocean?
Not really. Now I'm just going to show a chart of the channel of the Atlantic. Okay, can you all see that reasonably well? Can you see that? Can we see that? Anybody?
You need to go on speaker view, not gallery view. Then you just see Peter, as long as he's talking.
Ah, so I need to keep talking.
Yes.
Can you see this now? Right. Okay. So we have Antigua here. Okay, and you can see England all the way up there. So it is quite a long way, and there's some charts on here. We're just going to move to a different chart now. So this is a routing chart. Can you see this one okay? Can we see this? Yep, good, okay. So Antigua's here, UK is here. And these arrows, the blue arrows represent wind, okay? Standard wind direction, thickness of it indicates how frequently it is in that direction, and the arrowheads to indicate how strong. So you can see that if you just go straight from England up to, from Antigua up to England, you've got wind on the nose coming up here. But there's two things we just need to bear in mind about this. This is a Mercator projection. So the shortest route actually is a great circle, which on this chart would look a bit like that anyway, drifting towards the poles. So, and also we intend to have the Atlantic high pressure belt, and the high pressure system is always high, the subtropical high pressure zone here. So the normal route would be to go up this side, get north of the high pressure belt, south of the lows, and try and track across in this area here of westerly winds. So that is the kind of plan. So the first bit is kind of north and then east, and then you'll tend to sort of take another dog leg up like that. Traditional routing indicates you should be approaching Bishop Rock, heading pretty much due east.
Right.
Okay. So that's the sort of big thing. And I get updated weather forecasts on a daily basis, a grid file through from the sat phone. So you just tend to, within that sort of kind of large plan, adjust your plan as to how the wind is going to be, and we get wind for about the next 4 or 5 days.
Okay, well, we'll probably talk about a bit about that in a little while. Just before we get onto that side of it, can you just take us through the difference between when you're doing single-handed, kind of long distance sailing, and compared to when you have a crew?
I think really the bigger difference is kind of a transocean trip as opposed to a shorter trip or a shorter race, in that if you're doing a fastnet race or around the Cannes race, you're pretty much full on speed and no other considerations. On a transocean passage, you're really looking at a combination. You want to be reasonably quick, but what you're really wanting to do is make sure you're protecting your gear and also protecting yourself and looking after yourself and looking after the boat. So, and also, I suppose with single-handed, you're going to be using steering mechanisms of various types, either the autopilot or the mechanical wind vane one, which does mean you have to reef a little bit earlier than you would if you were helming it.
Right.
So you just have to sail a bit more conservatively, and you're spending a lot of time. I probably do a circuit of the boat in the morning, a circuit in the evening, just for checking for chafe, seeing that everything's leading and working as it should do.
But from a sleeping perspective, how often do you get your head down? How long will you stay asleep for? Kind of how much of a watch do you feel that you need to be maintaining when you're out in the middle of the ocean?
Yes, it's always quite funny, isn't it? Because we are required to keep a good watch, a proper watch by every means available. But then you kind of think, well, wait a minute, I haven't seen a ship for a week, so the chance of wanting to share the same bit of ocean with one is quite unlikely. So I'll normally sleep for about an hour. So I'll sort of go to bed as it's getting dark, maybe 10 o'clock. I'll sleep, but I'll sleep for about an hour, stick my head up, check everything's okay. If I need to do anything, I'll do it, and if not, I'll go back to bed again. So I'll probably be sleeping for sort of get about 6-7 hours of sleep through the night, but mostly it'll be in sort of shorter bursts.
Wow.
I've got.
And you don't have an
I've
issue.
got AIS, so I've got if any AIS equipped vessel comes close to me, the alarm will go off. And it has to be said, there's not many vessels mid-ocean that are not on that don't have AIS. The only ones that you'll see not having AIS are warships, and they'll know you're there anyway.
Okay, good. And then what in your day, what are the kind of the priorities that you have? So you get up in the morning, what are the things, do you have a checklist of things that you go through during the daytime just to make sure that everything is as it should be?
Yes, I mean, you sort of get up.
The structure of a day, what would a day at sea feel like to you?
So normal kind of day is, to wake up, just a quick deck check everything's okay. Maybe an engine check. And then run the engine for probably half an hour, 40 minutes, to get a bit of charge into the batteries. And obviously around your deck check, you just check that your steering, your course is still good, the sails are trimmed properly, nothing's looking like getting worn or anything. And then after breakfast, plan any navigation stuff you need to do. So I quite like doing celestial navigation. So I'll work out what time of noon sight and then what time to do morning sight and afternoon sight as well. And then a bit of boat maintenance. So sort of checking the bilges, bit of cleaning. So I'll sort of clean the floor every other day or 2 or 3 days, depending. Clean the heads, clean the cooking's a bit of clean at the moment, but so general sort of running sort of work of just general maintaining the boat in good order.
Okay, good. You mentioned earlier on that you have a satellite phone for connection. So what communication do you have when you're at sea? Can you just talk us through the infrastructure that you have on board and
okay, so we have the sat phone, which is a satellite phone, it's Iridium, and I can connect that to a computer so that I can get grid files, I can do emails. So that's that. We also have a tracker.
Can you just tell us what a grid file is there, Peter?
Oh, yes, of course. So grid file, it stands for gridded information by binary. And what it is, it's a sort of kind of zipped up file with a weather map in it. It is quite power efficient and also data efficient. So you get an awful lot of data for not a lot of you get a lot in there for not a lot wasted. So you can get a grid. So I generally get one of the whole Atlantic for 4 days, and then one of more local for about how far I'm going to go in 4 days. So that's sort of weather information updated daily. We also have this little thing which is a tracker. Okay, so you can send text messages to that, and I'll be putting a blog up on that as I go along, and you can log on to that. It's http:/my.yb.tl/sailsam. Next question. What's up?
Sorry. I can't see you, so I didn't know if you're finished. Okay, so when you've downloaded your grid files and you see how does the weather that's coming affect the headings that you'll follow?
Quite a big degree. I mean, because you're getting because what your normal sort of plan as regards to your sort of navigation is, you've got your general idea of where you want to be going, but within that you're kind of looking, right, where do I want to be regard this weather system, where do I want to be in 2 days time and in 4 days time relative to a weather system. So you will be sort of adapting as you go along, and if you look at which, if you were to compare some of my previous trips on this one, they are quite different. as to where we've ended up. There was one time, I think it's about 10, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, we really went an awful long way north because the Azores High was quite a long way north that year. So we had to go quite a long way north to get around the top of it. But and then other years, I've been sort of comparatively further south.
Right. Okay. And if you have severe weather coming, kind of, how do you plan for that, and what tactics do you use as and when you find that you're in it?
Well, you normally use your grid fires to try and avoid the worst of it.
So, I'm sure it all works out that way.
But yeah, you do get caught in strong wind from time to time, and it does happen. At that time in the Atlantic, you're likely to get a gale, maybe a severe gale. You're unlikely to get much worse than that. But if we do reduce sail, if it was sort of up to 45, 50 knots, we'd probably be down to storm jib. And in those conditions, she'll be fine, generally, with the storm jib, maybe trysail as well. A lot of the time, actually, once it's blown through, you need to get your sails back on a bit quick, because if you're just left a bit floundering in big seas and not much wind, it doesn't do you any favours.
Right.
So,
okay.
But I'm not. And the great thing with these days, because we can get updated forecasts, all the time. We would hope to be able to avoid the worst of it. It's not like sort of 30 years ago when you'd sort of set off with the forecast and you wouldn't really get another forecast, or it's potentially that you didn't get another forecast until you got within the range of the shipping forecast.
Right.
So you're kind of going blind. Although 30 years ago you could get a weather facts machine, which is basically an SSB radio that churned out weather maps from Goonhilly in the Admiralty facility or Met Office facility down in Cornwall. But we just use satellite grid files now, which is much better.
And are there any other specific kind of dangers on an ocean crossing, or anything specific to like the start or middle or towards the end of a voyage that you just need to be paying attention to or keeping an eye on?
In a way, with this trip, the hardest bit is the last bit up the English Channel, because for most of the time you're sort of merrily out in the ocean. There's not in big shipping lanes most of the time, so really sort of shipping is a big consideration once you're into the English Channel. Aside from that, other stuff, icebergs are generally sort of further north than the route we're taking, or they have in the past sometimes drifted down south, but I don't expect icebergs. Hitting whales is a possibility, as in whales the creature, not the sort of small unit of land mass, generally masquerading as a country to the west of England. I just saw Beverly, so I thought we'd have a little dig at the Welsh. So no. So hitting whales is to be avoided. I did hit one once, but fortunately, I think we did more damage to the whale than we did to ourselves.
I'm sure.
Hitting debris in the sea. Sometimes there's logs, sometimes cargo falls off ships, but again, that's fairly rare. And people have hit containers in the past, but again, you've got to be very unlucky to hit a container, and they do sink after. Containers fall off ships on a fairly regular basis. They don't really publicise, but they do sink after a few days.
Right. Okay. So you're lucky in that. And then when you get back to shore, again, is there anything that, apart from a first few needed pints with a few friends, is there anything that you need to kind of either in the boat to be checked up on, or for you personally that you go through after kind of like a long haul at sea?
Not especially. The thing is, for the last day or so, you all have been in sort of general phone contact, so you'll be able to phone people and you'll be aware. And also, once you're coming up channel, you'll be able to follow, to see us on AIS.
Right.
So the thing is, whenever you arrive anywhere, you are kind of expected these days. So sort of it's not just like in the sort of 40 years ago in the single-handed transatlantic races. You just sort of emerge into Newport. Nobody knows where on earth you've been for the last 3.5 weeks. You know?
Very good, very good. And I would imagine, so once you're back onto land, kind of you'd like a little bit of a break from sailing for a while. So what's your plans for Sam over the summer? What do you have coming up? You'll take a bit of time, or will you just go keep on sailing?
Well, as soon as we get back, so the plans for Sam in the summer are really dependent on what's happening. We will do Cows Week if it happens, which is about the 8th of August. Whether that will happen, it's sort of nobody knows just yet. Following Cows Week, there's a Rorke race called the Ushant race, which I would like to do. I will do if it runs. We'll do it. A lot of last year's Fastnet crew are keen to do that, and I'm sure a few others are keen to do that. And that starts at Cowes, goes down the coast to Cornwall, across to Ushant, and then finishes in St Malo, which is a nice place to finish a race, as a lot of you know.
Yeah, indeed. Lovely world.
We will do that. And that takes us into end of August. I think pretty much as soon as I get back to England, Sam will come out of the water and get a new coat of anti-foul, which she will definitely need. The bottom at the moment is quite dirty after being in the water since September, and a few days in Jolly Harbour didn't help either. But so we'll get the bottom clean. So I'll lift the boat out in pretty much as soon as I get back, so it's good and dry for Cows Week.
Very good.
And clean for Cows Week.
Clean. Very good. So, good. Well, that's everything from my side. So I'm just going to open it up to all those who are listening in. Now, I have no access to video here, so I can't see who's there. So maybe, Peter, you can just pick and choose people that have questions out there for you.
Right. Well, then, sort of, does anybody have any questions to begin with?
I do.
Hello, Tim.
Can I get one in quick?
Yes, yeah, go for it.
It's a long time ago, but somebody talking about crossing the Atlantic said there was some guy, Murphy or somebody, who would route you across by long wave radio or something. Is there anything similar to that these days, or you don't?
Oh, there was the famous Herb.
Herb, that's it.
Yeah, Herb Hildenberg was his name, and he was somewhere in Canada, and he was a bit of a radio fanatic, and he was a bit of a weather fanatic, and so you could contact him, and for free he would route boats across the Atlantic. And what you would normally do, if you weren't one of the boats that he was routing, you could just listen in, and you'd sort of pick a boat that was fairly close to you. And about 8 o'clock GMT UT every night, he'd go on, and he'd sort of give you. And he did have a really good understanding of Atlantic weather and so on. So he was actually very good. And I just used to sort of listen in to see what his general sort of views were. And also the boats that he was routing, he was very funny. If he didn't do what he told you, yeah, you got a right ticking off. It's very funny.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. But he's not around anymore, and there's
No, he retired about 5-6 years ago. There was one time I remember listening to it, and he called up this boat, and he says, "How are you making out?" And this woman comes, an American woman came on and said, "We're not doing very well here, Herb. It's blowing 60 knots." And he just kind of said, "Well, you should have gone where I told you to go."
Oh dear.
Very good.
But he retired a few years ago. So, yeah. But there's lots of professional routing services that you can get. And they're not too expensive. I mean, you can get a couple $100. You could probably get a reasonable sort of routing. Sometimes the routing isn't quite as what you want. It's generally, if you get a professional router like WRI, World Routing International, and we use them on the Newport Bermuda race. But of course, for the race, we weren't allowed to get anything once the race had started. But we got really good information about where the Gulf Stream was, and our predicted kind of timing all the way down. Of course, when you get a professional router, they'll have your polar diagram, polars for your boat, and they will expect you to sail your boat at full speed, and you might not be doing, because if you're single-handed, you're not going to sail it as fast as if you're fully crewed. So they don't always take that into consideration, but I mean, it can be a useful kind of thing.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I'd like one.
Nigel, yes.
Yeah. I think Mike Parr, our new chief instructor, I think he said in his meteorology course he's now doing online or in Zoom that he actually does routing as well. But my question was, what sail formation do you have when you're going downwind in the trades?
Yeah, it's a good question, that, because a lot of people do different things. I normally just go straight forward, poled out genoa, poled out jib or genoa. Sigma has got quite a big mainsail, so you'll kind of reef the main early. But on the other hand, the mast is quite a long way forward, so you've got quite a lot of sail area, quite a long way forward. But in sort of 25 knots, I'll probably have sort of 2 reefs, poled out jib, and the self steering will pretty much cope with that. Yeah, as it gets a bit windier, you have to reduce a little bit, and obviously the waves start throwing you around a bit. In lighter winds, if I need to get a bit of move on, I'll put the spinnaker up if it's appropriate. I do, when single-handed, tend not to run the spinnaker too much at night time. But no. So yeah, the answer really is mainly just poled out jib, main and poled out jib.
Peter?
There's a deafening silence. Hello?
Peter?
Yeah.
How do you adjust for different time zones as you're crossing them?
Okay, so at the moment we're 4 hours behind UT. And sort of theoretically you will correct your time for every time you sort of cross 15 degrees of longitude, you'll change for an hour. So my original sort of track out of here will be heading pretty much due north, so I won't be changing very much. Might sort of go an hour, go forward an hour a little bit, but I'll be kind of, as I approach the UK, I'll be working up to UT, or the UT as I get there, and probably switch on to summertime as I sort of get to the English coast, I guess.
Thank you.
But you do it as you go along, so that, because what you kind of want is midday to be, noon, which is when the sun is on your meridian due south of you. You want midday to be at about midday on your clock. So yeah, and you want it to be getting lighter. And of course, as I get further north, the days will be getting longer and longer and longer.
Peter, actually, I have another question. Is there an advantage to taking the route up to Bermuda and going across from there, or do you just like to do it in one quick swoop and do it in one go?
Yeah, I mean, you would, in a normal year, you would sort of be getting reasonably close to Bermuda, but it would still be quite a detour. And I generally don't like stopping if I can avoid it, because you stop for one day and it kind of costs you 3. And if you're at sea, when you're in the swing of things and everything's going okay, it does kind of sort of stop your routine if you stop. You kind of get out of sync with things. So I prefer really just to sort of, not to stop unless I have to. Also, Bermuda's a lovely place, but it's darned expensive.
I was going to say on that, Pete, what's the sort of the longest sort of nautical mile journey or transatlantic you've done as opposed to the shortest?
I think sort of Hamble to here is probably about the longest. I've done that 2 or 3 times in one hit, and that you're coming up to about 4,500, 5,000 miles.
Yeah.
This time, of course, we did the arc, so we did it in stages. We left the boat in Portugal for a month or so, and then did Portugal down to Canaries, and Canaries to St. Lucia. So Canaries to St. Lucia, the arc counts as transatlantic, but it's only 2,800 miles.
Only?
It's a fairly easy 2,000. It's a fairly easy 2,000 miles, and I don't think last year, Serena, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we ever tacked. I remember one time we did it
because one of our crew had sailed all that way. I think he only tacked once, and that's when we crossed the finishing line. She took the boat from Portugal. She's done all those miles, but only gone about once.
Only tacked it once. But I remember one time we did it on this season on the previous boat, and we did the whole of the arc, and we never tacked and we never reefed. Now there was another occasion. About 12, 11 days, something like that. There was another occasion I did the Round the Island race and never tacked, but that's a very different story. That was really fun.
Less than 12 days, I hope.
Yeah. Well,
Peter, what are your sleeping routines like when you're crossing the Atlantic? Do you have so many hours, or do you set an alarm? How does that work?
So normally, I think I mentioned before, I kind of turn in the evening and time, and I normally sleep for about an hour, stick my head up, see everything is okay, and go back to sleep again. And obviously, if I need to do anything, I'll need to do it. And there are some nights where you will be kind of thinking, look, there's a front coming through at midnight or round about then, and you're going to want to sort of be awake then. So you will sort of adapt your sleep because of that. But you will, as much as you can, try to be sleeping a reasonable amount, because you do need to sleep. And if you don't sleep, when you get tired, you get careless and your judgment goes, and both of those are rather unsafe. So you do need to make sure you are properly rested. And that's one of the problems of this trip, is that when you get to the UK, the last 150 miles up the UK coast, you're not going to sleep much.
But Peter has a sixth sense. As the boat changes its motion at all, then he just wakes up. So anyone who's sailed with Peter at night knows when he's supposed to be asleep, you keep really, really carefully on your watch, because if you do anything at all remotely not right, he pops up like a bloody meerkat. What's going wrong? He has that instinct that if anything changes,
you do get used to your boat. You do get used to your boat. And I always say that if something goes wrong, if the course goes wrong, or the self-steering has a bit of a hiccup, I'll fall out of my bunk. So
my watch used to pride ourselves that Peter didn't pop up on our watch. We were so beautifully.
And do you wear a life jacket all the time, or do you wear a harness, or nothing, or what?
I tend to wear a harness rather than a life jacket, but it's quite good actually. You see the life jacket that I generally use. There's 10 life jackets on the boat, and I normally use number 3. And you can see that colour-wise, it is very much sort of affected by this UV. It's a lot paler than the other ones, but so I normally wear a harness actually. If I'm going, I think it's an old-fashioned harness that's not life jacket.
And what self-steering do you have on the boat, Peter?
I have a Raymarine autopilot, auto helm, and we have a monitor wind vane self-steering gear. So the monitor, the wind vane, does most of the work.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that is it kind of follows the wind, but it doesn't use any power. So it's all mechanical, and it's just a wind vane. So the wind vane flops over, links through to a couple of things, and then eventually turns the wheel to bring you back onto the course relative to the wind. So if the wind changes, you'll follow the wind, okay? But it does mean that if the wind suddenly veers and if on a compass course you would jibe, it won't do that. It will follow the wind. You might be going the wrong way, but you won't be jibing accidentally.
Do you have a windmill?
No, I've got a couple of solar panels, which are kind of handy. The solar panels do a nice job actually.
And how many batteries?
They're not enough to sort of run everything, but it doesn't mean I can use. I need to run the engine rather less.
How many batteries on board?
There's a starting battery, which is just a straightforward starting battery, and then I've just got 2. They're about 105 amp hours each, so I've got 210 amp hours of service battery. But we set the boat up, everything is quite low power, so I haven't got a great big plotter going. The plotter's quite a small screen and low consumption. All the lights are LEDs, So I'm really only using, I mean, at night time, the biggest drain is the fridge. So that's about 4 amps. So, yeah, at night time, I'm drawing less than 2. I don't run the fridge at night time, so I'm drawing less than 2 amps at night time. So on that basis, 200 amp hours is quite a lot. And they're AGM absorbed class map batteries for those who are technical about batteries.
So Peter,
AGM,
if you don't run the fridge at night, does that mean that you switch the fridge on during the day, so you're constantly having to cool it down again? Do you switch it on and off then?
yeah. But I mean, it's really, the fridge, and obviously the fridge is as we get further north, there's not such a demand on it, but it's really just to keep milk for a few days and stuff. It's to keep things cool rather than sort of chill everything and have ice cold beer. But what I will do is I'll put quite a lot of stuff in it a few days before and get a lot of stuff in it that's really cold, so it'll maintain coolth in there for quite a long time, which we did on the Ark as well. But I've done transatlantics without a fridge, and yeah, it's perfectly doable.
Good.
Anybody else?
Well, just to ask whether, switching the fridge on and off, aren't you using quite a lot of power when you do switch it back on to get it cool again and then lose it all? I don't know, the pros and cons of that?
Yes, but I don't really need to run it. I don't need to run it all the time to keep things sufficiently cool. So, 8 hours a day is plenty, really, for it. Because and the stuff that's in there is going to retain coolth anyway. It's quite a good insulated box in there, so you only need to. It's not, if you leave it off for 12 hours at night time, it's not warming up to full sort of daytime temperature by any means at all.
Do you generally prefer to do the transatlantic single-handed, or if you had a crew, would you rather have a crew with you? Depending on the crew.
It really sort of depends. It's interesting that I always kind of said that if I do take a crew on this sort of trip, they need to make the trip better for me. So it needs to be somebody that I've sailed with and I get on with and that I can trust. Not a sailing sort of stuff, but I don't want to sort of take somebody I've not met before and find that they're not making the trip easier for me. See the point?
Yeah. You took Ray.
Yeah.
Ray
was great.
Dangerous line there for a while.
Ray was great, and I'd be happy to take Ray again. And he did add to the trip.
Because I've sailed across the Atlantic with him now as well.
But he wouldn't eat the porridge that got weevils in it, though.
Certain standards I have to do.
That comes of sailing with a vegetarian.
Exactly.
And I think it would have been easier to have had a chicken, wouldn't it, rather than all the eggs yet?
Yes.
Don't ask him to catch the fish anyway.
I think that.
No, definitely don't ask you to catch a fish.
I think Peter would have probably eaten the chicken while I was off watch. So sufficiently going to fix the problem. Very good. Good. Is there anything else for Peter before we wrap it all up?
Anna's asking what do
fishing.
you do about fresh water, Peter?
Good question, because you can go for 3 weeks without food, but you'll die within 3 days, and certainly if you don't have water. So I don't have a water maker. We have 2 tanks that are about 30 gallons each. So that's about 150 litres. In fact, we measured it. They're 150 litres each. So normally 1 tank will last me the whole trip. In addition to that, I've got about another 50 litres in jerry cans and bottles and stuff. So I've got more water than I need, but obviously water is to be guarded and cherished. So do a lot of cooking in seawater, a lot of washing up in seawater. Again, if you're there's that much less pressure on your water consumption or your water water capacity. So
Yeah.
I've got really I've got 2.5 times as much as I need.
And you don't need a shower, of course, if you're single-handed. If no one's there, so if you get smelly.
You can have a shower. So what I tend to do is have a shower using seawater and rinse off with fresh water. So there's a deck shower on the back of the boat.
Oh, that's generous of you. When we did the Ark, we were allowed 1/2 litre of fresh water to shower every other day.
But that's because there was 5 of us on the boat.
Absolutely.
So it does make a difference.
Very different water management. Peter, in worst case scenario, if you had to take the life raft, what have you got for arrangements for that in worst case scenario?
So there's the grab bag, and actually I just combine everything really into the box that has the flares in it. So I'll put the handheld radio in there, the sat phone in there, and all that kind of stuff. And then another bag with some water and some other provisions in it, because water's the biggest thing. And make sure that you take your EPIRB with you so that somebody might come and rescue you. But I mean, yeah, again, these days, if you do have to take to the life raft, which as we all know is very much the last resort, you take an EPIRB with you and you've got a very good chance of being picked up within a couple of days or so. You know, the sort of stories of 40 years ago of the Baileys and the Robertsons sort of drifting for weeks on end, not being picked up. I mean, I think the Baileys were 117 days drifting in their life raft, and the ship that picked them up was about the 8th one that they saw. You know, so that's just not going to happen in the days of EPIRBs and a sat phone.
Yeah.
So,
Peter,
so
when you're cooking with seawater, do you dilute it at all? Because it's very strongly salty.
So you can cook sort of most veggies, so potatoes, carrots, broccoli, that can all go in seawater. Cabbage about 50/50. Rice and pasta about 75% fresh water, 25% seawater. Yeah, and a boiled egg you can boil in completely in seawater, of course. You know, so seawater you can use for a lot. Because the other thing is making sure I got enough gas, cooking gas, and fuel, but we're fairly sorted out on that.
Is that a yellow brick tracker you had to check your progress?
That's yellow brick, yeah. I think Berenice will send out. I'll ask Berenice to send out the.
If you look on chat,
tracker details.
If you put on chat now, the yellow brick is on chat.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Is there any reason why you don't get fish? You don't fish, or you go too fast, or is it just not practical to attempt it? What's the...
When I fish, I'm not a great danger to the fish population of the world. There's most of the fish of the oceans actually live over the continental shelves. There's not that much in the mid-oceans. I mean, there are fish, but it's not as much as you get over the continental shelves. So it's certainly in the warmer sort of areas. So there's not that much fish life. There's a bit, but there's not much.
The other Ark boats, a lot of them did catch fish, but they were going lots slower than we were, and
of course.
So therefore, we were going far too fast to catch fish.
Right.
And also, to catch fish, you have to have a fishing line.
Yeah. You also have to know what you're doing, and I don't really know much about fishing.
I thought with Ray on board, you'd have been doing lots.
Well, there was one time when we sailed back on Nisida, and Rat decided he was going to catch lots of fish and feed us all the way across. And he put a line out as we left Antigua. After 3 or 4 days, we hadn't caught anything, and I found a flying fish on the deck. So we put the flying fish on his line as bait, and the bait disappeared again, then with no extra fish. So by this stage, Rat's fishing expedition was minus fish, and it continued to be minus fish until we got back to Hamble.
And did you say you did have a water maker or didn't?
No, I don't.
A lot of people do now, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. But my reasoning was that really the only time I would need it the only time I would use it might need it would be if I do the arc, which I probably might do. We'll probably do in a couple of years' time. So I mean, for one trip every every other year, it's a bit of a pain in the neck. Because the thing about a water maker is that once you've got it in, you need to keep it working. And if you can't just switch it off and leave it, it has to be pickled, and then recommissioning is quite a performance. It can be quite difficult. So I decided I would not have a water maker. If I need to catch water, we can do what people did 50 years ago and catch it in your sails and direct it into your tanks. That's what Chichester and Robin Knox Johnson and Martese and all those guys did. And rainwater seems pretty good to me. But I say I've got more water than I could. As long as I don't get a leak in the tanks or anything, I'm fine with that water.
Good.
This is Martin. I just want to thank you very much. I need to drop off, but have a good trip.
Nice to see you, Martin.
Hi, Peter.
Oh, hi, Steve.
Just turned up a bit late, so no change there. And what are your thoughts about, especially when you're sailing solo, keeping a lookout and how you time these things, and have you had any close calls with merchant ships where their lookout hasn't been particularly good?
I don't know. We got a bit close to a fishing boat a couple of years ago with Ray, but that was largely our fault. We have AIS, which does give me an alarm. And as I say, there's not many vessels mid-ocean that don't have AIS, so that's a big help. AIS is automatic identification system, by the way, and it's just a VHF-based thing, so that we transmit our identity and our course and our speed on a VHF to all the ships in the area, and we get the same information from them. So you'll know if there's anybody around, and you can normally see them at about 10-15 miles away on AIS. So a long time before you'd see anybody, with eyeballs. So it's actually quite efficient. So I'm happy that I'm keeping a sufficient lookout for my needs.
Thank you. Have a good trip.
Thank you. I'm sure I will. I'm looking forward to it now.
When are you actually leaving?
So maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. I'm just doing. I've got sort of sails and equipment stowed in Boss's garage, so I've got to get that out, and I'll go alongside the dock for a couple of days to sort of load up and get the anchor chain stowed down below and get the dinghy cleaned off and stowed down below and all that kind of stuff. So I'll kind of go when I'm ready, but I don't want to spend days and days on the dock. It's a bloody expensive dock.
I remember.
At anchor here, it's sort of nice and free. Well, it's not free. You've got to pay harbour dues. But
So will there be a last meal at Cloggy's, or is it still shut?
Well, no, the thing is, you see, originally my intention was probably to leave Thursday, but Cloggy's, the rules have been relaxed, so bars are allowed to open, I think, from today. So I think Skullduggery is open, so I might go down there a bit later. And I think Cloggy's is opening on Wednesday. But I'd quite like to have a last dinner ashore rather than, because in lockdown I've been cooking on the boat every day for the last month, and I'm going to cook for the last 2 months. I'm going to cook for the next month, so I think I might just have a meal ashore would be so nice.
Peter, have you ever had really bad seasickness or felt very unwell on your own?
No, not especially.
No, it's your cast iron stomach, Peter.
Well, so far.
Yeah. Well, don't pick up something nasty in Cloggy's.
No. Well, I think, effectively, this island is at the moment pretty much COVID free. So there's one active case, as far as I know, and the borders have been properly closed for the last couple of months anyway. Although they are talking of letting, they are desperate to get tourists coming back in because they need the money.
Yeah.
You know, they can't just kind of invent money like Europe manages to do and America manages to do.
Yeah. Must be very difficult for them.
It's interesting because Antigua's sort of big industries are tourism, which is the biggest thing. Tiny bit of agriculture. Another significant part is offshore finance. So they're quite big into money laundering and offshore finance. There's also quite a big, quite a lot of online gaming being run from Antigua, and quite a lot of porn being run from Antigua, as I believe. So you know, this all helps the economy.
Just a quick question. Do you are you quite busy on the whole trip, navigating and planning, or do you have a bit of free time? And what do you do, like do you get bored and stuff? Do you read?
So yes, you do get a bit of free time. I mean, it's always quite interesting to me that when you say you're going across single-handed, people kind of say, well, what are you going to do with yourself all the time? And you say, well, if you sort of ask them, if you say, look, if I'm taking 4 people, you wouldn't be asking me that question. So why would you think that because I'm on my own, I've got time to kill? So you're quite busy doing all your sort of regular sort of routine work. But then, yeah, I tend to read a fair bit if I can, if there's nothing much going on. I've got 1 or 2 Netflix films downloaded, so I might watch a movie every now and again. So I've been quite enjoying watching The Last Kingdom on Netflix. There's lots of Vikings sort of and Saxons going around, sort of lots of gratuitous violence and sex.
Good. Any last questions for Peter here? I know he's...
No.
Good.
I'd like to thank Peter for a very interesting evening. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the time, Peter, and sharing with us. It's very informative indeed, as always.
Maybe when I get back, and depending on what's sort of opening up again, we could sort of do a repeat, or maybe do a repeat in the sort of clubhouse if we're allowed to mingle again. We'll see. One of the reasons I stayed here so long is that it didn't seem worth hurrying back to the UK.
Quite. I think you were quite right.
I mean, and here at Anchor, I've swum every day, twice a day quite often. It's sort of, why would I change?
Well, the new sport that's taken off here is swimming in the River Thames. Every time you go past, people are swimming there with little big orange floats beside them, but they're swimming on the Thames. I mean, they must be desperate.
I've swum across the Thames. Very sadly, somebody got killed here the other day, last week, swimming across. They got mowed down by a motorboat.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and it was a lady from a boat moored and anchored in here, and I don't know which boat it was, and it was run over by another motorboat by somebody in a rib, which is very sad. Died in hospital. I've been since lockdown. I've been mostly using the dinghy. I've been mostly using the oars, not using much thing, because the first sort of bit of lockdown, I sort of did an afternoon row around the harbour in it to sort of a bit of exercise and something to do in the afternoon for an hour.
It's quite funny. We're talking to some rowers about Peter rowing the dinghy. They said, "Oh, do you have a scull that you use?" And so he showed them the rubber dub of the normal sailors' rowing machine, which was a total novelty to the rowers.
It doesn't row very well.
Peter, what Ray can't say is don't forget to attend the AGM, and if you can't attend the AGM, don't forget to cast your vote for Commodore.
Yes.
Very good. Well done. Well done. Well done.
I knew you couldn't say it, Ray. You're far too nice.
Got the plug in there for me. Well worth the tenner I gave you for that one.
Yes, I will. We have to do it tomorrow, don't we?
Yeah.
I think it opens tomorrow and
open until Thursday night. So
sorry.
Vote
so the AGM
will start tomorrow, and it's open until Thursday night.
Oh, okay, right. But you can't start voting until tomorrow.
No, not until tomorrow. Indeed.
Cool. Yes, I will.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Peter. Great, everybody. Okay, we'll wrap it all up. Thank you very much for Peter, for joining in. Thanks,
It's
everyone.
been a pleasure to sort of see you all and talk to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll see you in about a month when I'm back, I guess.
Well, keep in
Nice to
touch.
see you again.
Look forward to welcoming you back to Hamble. There's not much social distancing in Hamble at the moment. It looks like any other Sunday on a sunny day. The dinghies are going out. Not many yachts are going out because there's nowhere to go.
No. It looks like I'll probably come back into Mercury.
Right.
Will you have to quarantine for 14 days?
I think not.
Yeah. They're going to be able to place that.
If you look at the government sort of latest thing, there's a whole list of people who are exempt, which includes seamen and masters. So I'm the master of a British ship, and I will have been in self-quarantine for 20-something days. I think it's a bit much to ask me to go into quarantine. But I thought also I might just drop into Plymouth because I quite like Plymouth anyway as a town. It's quite fun.
Just quote the
and
new
then
defence.
when they say where from, you just say, well, I just come over from Falmouth.
Just quote the new British sort of get out clause. It's the Cummings law. You'll be fine.
Yeah. No, but I'll check. Sort of one of my list of things to do this week is phone up the Coast Guard in the UK and just see what customs in the UK and just see what the situation is. But as a seaman, I am, and as master of a vessel, I am exempt from customs from quarantine requirements.
Safe journey, Peter. Hope to see you down the bar.
Bon
voyage.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers, Peter.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Peter.
Okay,
Good. Well done,
Bye-bye,
Ray, for
everybody.
organising.
And you're more than welcome. More than welcome.
Bye.